Hey everyone, so today in between long form content, as usual, I'm just doing some small stuff in between, and I decided to do a AMA on twitter.com. I'll put the link to my Twitter in the description if anyone wants to follow or anything like that, but that's where I'm pulling all the questions from. I'll put them on the screen and whatnot, so I wanted to keep this anime focused, so all the questions are going to be about that. So with that being said, let's get into it. So we got from Braydek, what is your least favorite anime trope? I feel like there's not as many super easily identifiable tropes in a lot of the stuff that's coming out anymore. I mean, there's like genre contemporary stuff, but like it's usually pretty subversive overall. But this isn't as big anymore. Maybe I just don't watch as much harem shit anymore. But like the whole tripping into a girl and it forces like a sexual situation thing is like the most cringe and terrible thing ever, pretty much. I mean, if you've seen To Love Ru, that is the entire show. Like, every episode is this, but like for 24 minutes. It's the worst shit ever. It's just like entirely embarrassing and trashy, and like it's such a cop-out. Like, instead of writing to where either character actually like wants to do anything, it's just, oops, it's fate, haha, we tripped. It's so disgusting. So we got from White Fang here. What is your favorite character archetype on anime? And simultaneously, what is your least favorite? I thought on this one for a while. It was kind of difficult for me to actually come up with an answer. But my favorite used to be like the really smart, edgy, like protag or anti-hero types like Lelouch, Kira, etc. I don't think that's really super my type anymore, but I do like those types. But I think now if I had like a favorite archetype, this is a pretty broad category, but the Golden Witch, formerly Digi, coined a term called Otaku Hero, which is basically like a hero's journey, but with an anime-centric focus on like a broad and huge range of perspectives and focusing on saving as many people as possible. So for this term, think of like Sora, No Game No Life, Okabe from Steins Gate, etc., where it's like they're focused on like getting all these different perspectives. Sora wants to get all the different races of the people in this world to like join their forces together and think about shit better. Okabe is trying to save everyone in all the timelines, that kind of shit like that. So I think like those kind of characters are probably my favorite right now. Not specifically Okabe, but like also like Keiichi from Higurashi comes up in this kind of category. So all really cool characters. My least favorite, it was really hard actually for me. I felt like I would have had a lot of answers. Like, really annoying tsundere comes to mind, but like there's not as much of that anymore. And like I actually recently just finally watched Evangelion, and like Asuka's an annoying quote-unquote tsundere, I guess, but like if it's like for good reasons, it's not like a bad thing at all. So like maybe my least favorite would be like the rich annoying like Ojo-sama types, like the really bitchy ones. I'm thinking of like the blonde rich girl from To Love Ru. I don't know, I guess maybe everything I dislike is just from To Love Ru. So for the next one we got from LC here, we got, what in your opinion constitutes good or well-written character development? This is a fucking question and a half. Personally, I think a lot of people, at least like people who are pretty new to analysis and like about thinking critically in media in general, seem to think that like the bigger the number of twists and turns and changes for character development, the more gooder the character is, right? Like the literal number of turns and changes is like makes it better somehow. I think you can explain a lot of opinions on sites like r/anime, like these opinions with that mindset. But I think it neglects some of the more important aspects. I think good development is way more about like if the changes in the character make sense, what logic and situations bring them about, and like what it says about the topics that they convey, right? Like you can explain a character like Guts' character arc in like 2 sentences, right? You just say, he didn't have anything, only fought for survival and didn't have anything to live for, finds a purpose and starts to live for other people, and then it all gets ruined again, and then his arc again is once again trying to trust and be more social with other people. Like, that's a few sentences, very short premise, but you could talk about a character. I know poor Justin's gonna cry because I picked this example, but if I pick a character like Subaru, I think there's a lot of twists and turns in like even the first season of ReZero, but I don't think any of it is like as meaningful as anything that happens in Berserk necessarily to Guts. I think it's all about like the logic and the conclusions you come to based on that, and whether or not that's like interesting, unique, how well is it conveyed. Like, I think Guts' stuff is conveyed so well just because he probably couldn't explain that kind of stuff to you, and we see it time and time again. We see him have to make those decisions, and we see him be reluctant. I think that's all really good. I mean, at the end of the day, right, it's all subjective, but really the logic is what I think is the most important part to me. We have Polar. He says, worst commonly held anime opinion? This is like kind of a cop-out because a lot of people also disagree with this, but like I do have to still remind myself that Sword Art Online isn't like exclusively a joke, like that people actually think it's good. There's a couple series like that, right? But like the critical opinion on that is that it's bad, so it's kind of a cop-out, right? So outside of like specific anime, like the 3-episode rule is a thing that people used to really shill for. I don't think they do as much. I think it's kind of a dead meme. But the 3-episode rule just used to be a big thing. And along with that, like the idea that the premise is the most important thing about the anime, because right, the 3-episode rule is just like you don't drop a show until you've seen the first 3 episodes, because you know, what if it gets good, or what if you figure out what the whole premise of it is, right? Like in a show like Steins Gate, it takes way more than 3 episodes to get to like the central premise of the narrative, and there's a bunch of examples like that. But I think generally the premise doesn't mean shit, right? It's all about the execution. There's tons of shows with like strong premises like Sword Art Online, Gate, all kinds of isekai that are just turbo garbage, but the premises are like really cool and there's like a lot of potential depth. But then there's shows like K-On! Where the premise is like they're in high school, and it's like, oh, it's actually really good because it's meaningful about the way people interact and, you know, their aspirations and shit like that, right? So it's all about the execution. So I would say worst commonly held anime opinion is that the premise means fucking anything going into it. We got Eric. He says, what do you want for Father's Day? I would like about approximately 12 Toho Fumos. Thanks. From Fool here, we have, what is your rankings for the Snafu seasons and why? So, this one's hard for me. I like 1 and 2 pretty similar amounts. I think they both have like comparable strengths and weaknesses. It might be 1 is greater than 2 is greater than 3, but it could also be 2 is greater than 1 is greater than 3. For 1, I really like the short arcs and the unique art style, right? The character designs have a bit more charm and like difference compared to like box standard type designs. So, you know, the faces are pretty weird and expressive. But the general like atmosphere and vibe of season 2 and its arcs are really good, right? I really enjoy a lot of them. You get to see a lot more of the nuance of the characters, it feels like. But 1 is like really awesome. Also, we get to see a lot with Hachiman, and like it sets him up so well. And that's the only reason that season 2 can be quite as impactful. Season 2 looks like, animation-wise, it's like more technically impressive. I would probably call it better looking than season 1, although season 1 has a different charm to it that I like a lot. It's really hard to tell, but I would say season 3 is like my only solid opinion on it, is that season 3 is like definitely the worst. I think the middle dragged really hard in season 3, and I felt like they didn't have enough content to make a whole season of anime based on what was left. I would have been like really okay if it was like 4 episodes. I mean, we go through a lot of arcs that we've already had, and a lot of characters kind of just sitting around and not sure what to do. So I think like the only conclusion I can really come to is that season 3 is kind of a good bit worse. It's not bad, but I would not call it like great. We have Bradyek again. He says, if you could rewatch any one anime completely blind, which one would it be? Not Ashita no Joe. This was a hard one for me because I feel like most of my favorite shows are pretty spoiler-proof, right? I mean, I was spoiled on Joe going into it, right? So it didn't impact my opinion of it, though, really. I mean, a lot of my favorite shows I like specifically for the rewatches also. I would say maybe like No Game No Life, just because it's something I really like, and also because it's so short, and I've watched it so many times that I'm like really familiar with it, so I like have to space out my rewatches when I feel like it. But it might be fun to just rewatch it completely blind, just so I can like get all the entertainment out of all of those rewatches again in the exact same way. Maybe Higurashi also, since it's like a mystery story and based on twists, and I really like it. But I mean, the rewatches of Higurashi are really awesome also. So Penguin Mafia, he says, worst opinion you've heard someone else give. For me, I think it's probably when I made a thread on r/anime like fucking 6-7 years, probably 5 or 6 years ago. Just like talking about how much I liked Shiki and shit like that. And a good chunk of people in the comments were arguing with me on it about like, oh, like, and you see this on some other shitty reviewers also, like Glass Reflections Arcada, where he talks about Shiki and he's like, well, I mean, it's pretty good, but it's really obvious from episode 1 that the twist is that there's vampires, and none of the characters realize it, which is really dumb of them, because obviously it's vampires. Like, I think that is just the worst opinion of all time, just because it's like, A, it's not a fucking twist, right? Like, you should know going into episode 1 it's fucking obviously vampires, right? That doesn't like it's not like it's a mystery in some ways, but it's not like a mystery like, oh my god, how are all these people dying? It's more about like the exact manner and like the nuance that comes from the quote-unquote vampires themselves. But then also B, like the idea that the characters should like more easily accept that vampires exist in the literal real world. I find that really funny. Because it's like, we're like, well, obviously it's vampires. Why didn't they just go do something right away? And it's like, dude, try to convince your fucking friends that there's vampire fucking eating your mom or some shit, right? Like, absolute morons. I mean, we even see the doctor character try to do this one time. And, like, really seriously and as smart as he possibly can do it with as much evidence as he can to some of his friends, and he just gets fucking shut down completely. They're like, you're a fucking moron. Absolutely not. And they just treat it as a joke, right? The only way they end up convincing everyone is basically live proof demonstrating it by baiting, what's her name, Shizaki, I think, into like the group festival thing and showing everybody, hey, yeah, actual vampires, it's fucked up. So I think people's opinions on Shiki concerning that are pretty much the worst opinion ever. So from White Fang, we got, again, what is your weirdest guilty pleasure anime? Not Yosuga no Sora. I don't feel bad about that one, but aside from that, I kind of take issue with the idea of guilty pleasure shows. I think if you like something, you should own up to it, and if you can't explain why you like something, either maybe you don't like it as much as you thought, or you just haven't found the words to describe it yet. So yeah, mostly I think I can defend everything I like, so I don't really feel guilty about any of it. I guess people would probably say like High School of the Dead is something that would fit this category, right? But I mean, I think that show is so sick that I made a fucking 2-hour podcast explaining why I like it, right? Like, it's not like I'm just like, oh, it's bad, but I like it kind of deal. I just think it's good. I also felt this way about Fruit of Grisaya for a while, but more and more like rewatches of like, especially like season 2 of the movie and shit, have made me just feel like that it's just legitimately good. I can't quite explain necessarily why I like it so much. Like, I would give like season 2 in the movie like 8 out of 10 ish, and like I think that's a pretty fucking good score. So I wouldn't call those guilty pleasures though, but maybe the closest I have to them. There are some trashy elements though. Penguin Mafia again says, opinion of yours that has changed the most over time. This was also a pretty hard one. I think most anime fans have like a big change in taste at some point where they kind of just stop watching and liking like literally every show they see. Like when I got into anime like 2013, 2014-ish, right? Like I enjoyed Sword Art Online and I was like super invested in the story and shit like that. And every random garbage harem show, as you can see on my list if you scroll through there, I've got like fucking 10, 15, 20 of them from when I was fucking 15 or whatever, and just would watch literally anything. I watched every season of To Love Her, dude. Like, you know how it is. So I don't know if that's like something for me that has changed the most over time. It's kind of a cop-out because I feel like everyone kind of at some point gets more critical and has that change. I think one of the more tangible score changes though is that Code Geass went from being like my favorite show for a long time to like where I'm at now in like the last couple of years, where like I would give it like an 8 or a 7 probably like closer to an 8. And I think that's like more finding that the value of other shows can be higher, and that I don't necessarily value some of the things in Code Geass as much as others, as long as like seeing shows that are like better written with way like better pacing and stuff like that, more ideas per minute type deal. And also I think it's just because like I used to really overvalue like these kinds of like quote-unquote smart shows where it's like everything is about the nature of life and death and how the entire world should be run. What kind of government is the only true government, and can people ever truly be happy, etc., etc. Like really, I wouldn't say pretentious, but like grandiose type things. That kind of stuff usually doesn't end up as well as it promises. I think Code Geass pays off on it pretty decently, but like not as well as other shows I've given like 9s or 10s, right? Like the more I watch other stuff, the more I find value in like small lessons and stuff, like in Ashita no Joe or Mushoku Tensei, that you can't really get in stuff like that focuses too hard on like the big picture stuff maybe. So yeah, I think that might be like the biggest like value change from me. And finally we have from Level World, don't put this in the video. Not a question, I'm banning you. Okay, that's all the responses I got for my AMA. I appreciate everyone who gave me a question. If you'd like to see more of these, let me know for sure. Come up with some questions or something like that. I'll probably do another at some point, but this was pretty fun. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I will see you in the next one.